You know what I think surprises contractors the most once they actually really start understanding their numbers? It's not usually one massive catastrophic problem that's destroying their profitability. Honestly, most of the time, it's just a whole bunch of small leaks that are quietly draining money out of their business every single day. And because each of these leaks feel small, nobody panics about it. Nobody stops long enough to closely look at those leaks. But stacked together, right, across weeks or months or years, it becomes enormous. And honestly, I think there are contractors listening right now losing thousands of dollars every single month. And they genuinely do not see where it's happening yet. This is not because they're lazy. This is not because they're bad at business. This is not because they aren't working hard enough themselves. Usually it's because they're moving so fast to see these leaks clearly. Because when you're running a trades business, you are constantly reacting. You're answering calls, you're managing crews, you're handling customers, right? You're scheduling all those jobs, you're solving problems for everybody, and you're putting out fires. And somewhere inside all that chaos, profit quietly starts disappearing. Most business owners I talk to are busy. They're booked out, they've got a great reputation, they're doing everything right. But when they actually sit down and look at their numbers, something doesn't quite add up. The profit doesn't match the effort, and it's usually not a sales problem. It's a visibility problem. I'm Shannon Howard. I work with HVAC owners, electricians, plumbers, and contractors to uncover hidden profit, fix those leaks, and help you keep more of what you earn. This is Profit Isn't an Accident. So that's what we're talking about today, because honestly, I think a lot of contractors are way closer to financial breathing room than they realized. And they just haven't identified where the money is leaking out. And once you see the leaks, everything starts changing. Because I think a lot of business owners assume that, well, if we're financially stressed, we probably just need more jobs. But honestly, more jobs are not always the answer. Sometimes more jobs just create more chaos sitting on top of your weak profitability. And that's freaking exhausting because eventually you start feeling like we're working nonstop. So why does this still feel financially tight? And that question matters because healthy businesses should not constantly feel fragile. Now, listen carefully. There is a difference between being busy and being profitable. And it's actually a huge freaking difference. And honestly, revenue hides problems really well. Because when the money is coming in, you can convince yourself that things are fine. The trucks are moving, your schedule is full, your customers are calling, your business looks healthy externally. But internally, the margins might be getting crushed. And honestly, that disconnect creates so much more emotional stress for contractors because from the outside, people are assuming, dang, they must be doing great. Meanwhile, the owner is sitting there thinking, then why does this feel so stressful? And I think that question alone creates shame for some contractors because they think, man, I've been in business for X amount of years. I should have this figured out by now. But honestly, most business owners were never taught how to find hidden profit, right? You were taught to work harder, stay busy, say yes, keep grinding. But nobody ever taught you how to identify leaks. And hidden leaks destroy profitability fast. Now, let's talk about what those leaks actually look like because this is where businesses quietly lose thousands. First, labor creep. This one is massive. Jobs taking slightly longer than estimated. Crews moving slower than estimated. Maybe there's extra trips or some downtime, or maybe you're waiting on materials. Maybe there's a little rework. Individually, again, this doesn't feel catastrophic. But if every job takes an extra hour here, 2 extra hours there, that compounds fast across an entire company. And honestly, most contractors dramatically underestimate how much labor inefficiency affects their profitability, because labor is expensive, especially if you're paying your crews well. And once labor starts expanding beyond estimates, then your margins disappear quickly. Second, unbilled work. Now, this one is huge emotionally, because contractors that I know, they are usually good frickin' people. So what happens? They absorb things constantly. You know what? We'll just take care of it. It's no big deal. We'll eat the cost. I don't want conflict. But over time, those little absorbed costs become enormous financially. And honestly, I think some contractors are accidentally training customers to expect the free work constantly, right? Because boundaries around profitability are weak, most likely non-existent. Now listen, this is important. Protecting your margin is not greed. I say this a lot on this podcast because it is not greed. Healthy profitability is what allows businesses to stay stable, to pay employees properly, to reduce stress, to serve their customers well long term, to provide that stewardship, right? Weak profitability eventually hurts everybody. Third, underpricing. This is probably one of the biggest hidden profit killers in the trades. And honestly, a lot of contractors underprice emotionally. They price based on fear, competition, wanting the job, and not wanting rejection, instead of pricing based on what the business actually requires financially. And honestly, that creates businesses that are staying busy, but they never create business, the actual breathing room that you need as a business to stay afloat. Because if pricing only barely supports your labor, your materials, and your basic costs, then the owner, yes, you, absorbs every unexpected issue personally. And eventually that becomes emotionally exhausting, because now every mistake that's made feels expensive. Every slow week feels stressful, and every unexpected issue creates that anxiety. That's usually a margin problem. Now, here's another hidden leak that most contractors miss completely. Small inefficiencies, things like poor scheduling or multiple supply runs. Maybe it's bad communication or lack of systems. Things can be disorganized and you have crews standing around waiting for a job. Now, individually, again, these things feel small, but businesses are built on accumulation. And honestly, a lot of contractors are losing shocking amounts of money simply through operational inefficiency. Again, this is not because they're bad people. It's not because they aren't trying, but because they are so deep in daily operations that they don't have visibility anymore. And honestly, visibility changes everything. Because once you finally see where labor expands, where time disappears, where your callbacks happen, maybe where your margins get weak, you stop operating emotionally. You stop guessing. And honestly, I think some contractors have been guessing financially for years. Again, this is not something that happens intentionally. It's just because they never slowed down long enough to analyze what was happening right underneath the business. And I get it, because contractors are busy, but eventually you have to stop long enough to ask yourself, where is my money actually going? Because if you never ask that question, you'll keep solving financial pressure with more effort. And more effort does not always solve weak margins. Has it for you yet? Actually, sometimes it just provides this longer, drawn out problem that stays hidden longer and longer and longer in your business. And honestly, that's why some contractors hit burnout even while their revenue grows. Because growth without that healthy profitability creates even more pressure on you. There's not peace. Now, here's the good news. Most businesses do have hidden profit opportunities, usually more than the owners realize. Sometimes it's pricing adjustments. It could be labor efficiency. It's definitely got something to do with overhead control. Sometimes it's job costing visibility, and sometimes it's just reducing those callbacks. But step one is visibility. You cannot fix what you cannot see. And honestly, I think some contractors are 1 or 2 operational improvements away from dramatically changing the financial health of their business. Not because they need to work harder, but because they need more clarity. That's the shift. Not how do we stay busier, but how do we keep more from the work that we already have? That question changes businesses. Because once contractors finally start protecting margin intentionally, everything starts changing financially, emotionally, and mentally. Cash flow improves, your stress decreases, your decisions get easier, and growth becomes healthier. And honestly, that's when businesses finally start feeling successful, not just looking successful from the outside. So if you had any key takeaways from this, drop it in the comments, and I will see you on the next episode. If this hit, there is a reason. Most businesses aren't broken. They just don't have clear visibility into where the money's actually going. So if you want help finding it, grab my free Profit Edge playbook or book a quick session with me. You'll find everything in the show notes. And if you haven't already, follow the show so you don't miss what's next.